it's Melanie. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to do my May and June wrap up as well as my July TBR. So stay tuned. So because of all the traveling that we did this summer, I wasn't really able to film a May wrap up because at that time we were getting on a cruise and we didn't come home until about the middle of June. So I figured at that point it was kind of late to be posting a wrap up in TBR, so I figured I'd combine May and June and do like a double wrap up. So that's what we're gonna do. And oh my goodness, I read a lot in May. So let me start out by telling you my May stats. So in May, I read 17 books, 5 of which were audio, 12 were physical. And of those 12 physical, 1 was a graphic novel and 2 were middle grade. I had 0 1 stars, 0 2 stars, 5 3 stars, 6 4 stars, and 6 5 stars. I read a total of 5,089 pages. Yes, all of that was in May. So let's get into what all I read. So the first book that I read in May was a book with Xander, and that is The Magic Misfits by Neil Patrick Harris. And we gave this book 5 stars. We really enjoyed it. It was super cute. So this is one of the middle grade books that I read, and I read it out loud with Xander, and it's about this boy named Carter. And Carter was raised with his uncle. And he was taught at an early age how to do magic tricks. And his Uncle Sly wanted to use him to kind of help cheat people out of their money or steal money from people. And Carter, he didn't like the things that his uncle was doing, and he didn't think it was right. And eventually he ended up running away. And he finds himself in a town called Mineral Wells. And in Mineral Wells, he makes some friends with other kids that can also do magic. And Carter and his group of friends, they team up to try to take down a bunch of crooked carnies trying to steal from the town. Besides being a super cute story, this book also has several step-by-step instructions on how to do certain magic tricks. And Xander had a lot of fun learning how to do some of these magic tricks, and he was going around and showing everybody the magic that he could do after reading this, and he really enjoyed it. And it brought me so much joy seeing him so into this story and learning magic tricks and just all around enjoying it. And as soon as this was over, Xander's like, we gotta get the next one, we gotta get the next one. And so I pre-ordered the next one. It doesn't come out for a while though, I think. October maybe? I'm not sure, I have to look. But because he loved this story so much, we did pre-order the next book. So the next book that I read in May is City of Fallen Angels by Cassandra Clare. And this is the 4th book in the Mortal Instruments series. And if you haven't read the other books in the series and are interested in reading them and don't want any spoilers, you can always mute until I put this book down. And that kind of goes for any of the other books that are parts of series that I do throughout this wrap up. So in this book, it actually, I think, focuses more on Simon throughout the whole book. So he's found himself in quite a few predicaments. One, he currently has 2 girlfriends, Maya and Isabel, and he does not know how to handle this situation. It just kind of happened, and then he wasn't sure what to do about it, and well, things just went further and further, and yeah. He also has people just popping up all over the place trying to kill him, but when somebody tries to kill him, they die instead because of his whole new mark of Cain. And someone very sinister wants to use him and his special abilities. As far as Jace and Clary go, they are dealing with the consequences of bringing Jace back to life. And oh my gosh, the ending of this book. This is one of those that as soon as you finish it, you're going to want to have the next one on hand. I gave this 5 stars. So the next book that I read is Unforgiven by Stephanie Erikson, and this is book 2 in the Unseen trilogy. And Marty and I listened to the audiobook of this. So the Unseen is a counter-terrorism group that has the ability to read minds and possibly more. After the loss of her best friend and the discovery that pretty much her entire life was a lie, she is on a mission. But Mackenzie really has no idea what she's gotten herself into and whether she really can do what they're asking of her. Her only thought is that she wants to make the people who took her best friend from her pay. And we gave this 4 stars. So the next book that I read was another audiobook, and that was Love, Life, and the List by Casey West. I went into this book expecting it to be a 3 or a 3.5 star for me, but I actually liked it a lot more than I was expecting, and I ended up giving it 4 stars. I really liked the idea of the heart list. The story was super cute, and it's about a girl who is an artist, and she really wants to get her art displayed in this show. But the person in charge of picking who gets to be in the show tells her that her work is technically good, but it lacks the heart and life experience, and that it's just not good enough for the show. So she creates this heart list of things / experiences that she could try to kind of help her grow as an artist. And it seems to be working. Or is it? You'll have to read to find out. So the next book I read is The Other Woman by Sandy Jones, and I have an ARC of this, and it says that it goes on sale August 21st, though I think I saw online that it's September now. Rating this book was a bit tough for me because for most of the book I thought I would rate it a 4 star because of how much I was enjoying it. It reads really fast, it was really well written, and quite entertaining. Whenever I would pick it up, I wouldn't want to put it down. I would want to just keep reading it. However, the last couple of chapters really affected the rating for me. I was not a fan of kind of how it all ended. But I do feel like it deserves a decent rating because I enjoyed most of the book. So I ended up giving this a 3.5. The next thing I read was the audiobook of Undivided, which is the 3rd book in the Unseen trilogy by Stephanie Erikson. And just like the other 2 books, I also listened to the audiobook of this with Marty, and we both just love this whole trilogy. So Marty, my husband, he did have one complaint, and I kind of agree with him on this, that they really could have made this a 4-book series. Because towards the end, it felt like it got super condensed. Like they tried to finish up the story really quick and just kind of crammed it all in. Like maybe it was going to be a 4-book series and they canceled having a 4th book, and so everything had to get crammed into the 3rd one. Or like when you're writing an essay and it has to be like a certain length and it can't go over, and you just realize that you got down to the last paragraph or the last page or whatever, and you still have so much more to say, but you have to make it fit into that little tiny bit. That's kind of how this book felt towards the end. I remember when we got to the point where there was only like 45 minutes left in the story, I was thinking to myself, how are they going to wrap this all up and finish it in just 45 minutes? And they did. It was still a really, really good story. We thoroughly enjoyed it, but I felt that Mackenzie could have gotten more abilities. We could have gotten to know more characters and gotten to know a little bit more about them and let them develop. And as a little side note, there were some eerily similar things that the person in that book who wanted to run for president was saying, and they are almost word for word some of the things that Donald Trump said when running for president, but this book came out long before Donald Trump even started his campaign, so it was kind of like, it was a little weird. Like, even the whole Make America Great Again thing, that was in this book. Yeah, it was weird. But like I said, we thoroughly enjoyed the entire trilogy, and this conclusion was amazing, and we gave it a 4.5. So the next book that I read was my graphic novel. This was Snot Girl, Green Hair, Don't Care by Brian Lee O'Malley. And in my opinion, I gave this a very generous 3-star. After there being some time from reading it, I actually think it would probably be closer to like a 2 or 2.5 star in my opinion. I just really didn't connect with this book at all. It was strange. Now, first off, I want to say I love the fact that she has green hair because, you know, I like green hair. So she's called Snot Girl, or in her head she's called Snot Girl, or her illusion calls her Snot Girl. I don't know, but the Snot Girl thing comes from her having severe allergies, and she gets put on this experimental allergy medicine, which may or may not play a role in what's going on in this story. So early on, she makes this new friend, and then she sees this new friend die. Maybe. I don't know if the friend really died, if the friend ever really existed, if the friend didn't really die. Don't really know. Because later in the story, the girl reappears and she's like, oh yeah, you know, I'm not dead. So she keeps seeing her, so I don't know if she's hallucinating because of the medicine, or she's just crazy, or the girl actually didn't die. I don't know. And so I just really was not able to connect with this book. So yeah. As far as Goodreads goes, I gave this 3 stars, though I may go back and change it to 2. So the next book that I read was another middle grade book that I read with Xander, and that was A Tale Dark and Grim by Adam Gidwitz. And this is a fairy tale retelling of Hansel and Gretel. And this is not like a lot of middle grade books, and honestly, I was surprised that it was actually middle grade when reading it. I do not recommend this for small children, but if they're older middle grade kids that don't scare easily, then this would probably be okay. They might think it's cool. Like Xander, he thinks a lot of the stuff in there is pretty cool, but it's it's a lot more like the Grimm's fairy tales than most other retellings, because this is very graphic and gruesome, and things like having to cut off a finger and use the bone as a key. And they didn't hold anything back, like in describing beheadings and the blood and the guts, and yeah. So be warned with that. Xander, however, did enjoy this. It wasn't like one of his favorite books that we've read, but he did enjoy it, and we gave this 4 stars. Okay, so the next book that I read is Lying in Wait by Liz Nugent. And this is another book that I got an ARC for, and I think it, according to this, it came out June 12th. And oh my gosh, this book, it had me reeling. When I finished reading this, I had to go and rant to Marty for like an hour because I was flipping out over the end of this. So Lydia and Andrew live in a very posh neighborhood. Andrew is like this big time judge, and well, they end up murdering a drug-addled prostitute. Yeah. And their son Lawrence kind of starts figuring things out a little bit, and Lydia and Andrew don't think anybody's going to be looking for this girl because, I mean, she was a drug-addled prostitute. But she has a sister, and that sister is very invested in where she is and loves her and wants to find her. And Lawrence, he doesn't want to give up his mother or his father, but he wants to help the sister find some kind of comfort or whatever as much as he possibly can, and help her family as much as he can. And Lydia, she essentially runs this family. Everybody kind of does what Lydia wants. And when I started to realize what Lydia had up her sleeve, I wanted to throw this book. I was so mad at it. I honestly can't decide if I really like it or I hate it. It was really, really... That was not the ending that I wanted, but it was dark and twisted and holy cow. One thing I can say for certain is Liz Nugent knows how to write a twisted mind. So when I very first finished the book and I was like so mad at it, I was like, this is gonna be a 2 or maybe it'll be a 3. But because I kept thinking about it and because it made me feel so much, even if that so much was just anger, I ended up giving this a 3.75. So the next book I read is Clockwork Prince by Cassandra Clare, and this is the second book in the Infernal Devices series, and there was a lot going on in this book. So Will is searching for a demon that cursed him as a child, and Charlotte is being tested on whether she's actually capable of running the Institute, and Tessa and Jim's relationship continues to grow. I have to say that I think this may be one of my favorite books by Cassandra Clare, because everything in it was just, it was done for love, and it's just so sweet and so beautiful, and I love it. And I also gave this a 5. Okay, so the next book that I read is The 5 People You Meet in Heaven by Mitch Albom, and I gave this book 3.5. It was a really enjoyable read, and they packed a lot into this tiny little book. I think there's only like 196 pages, but they made every single page count. So it starts out with a man named Eddie dying at the very beginning, but throughout the book he goes to heaven, and he meets these 5 different people that were somehow a part of his life, whether they played a big part or a small part, and we got to learn about Eddie and his life. And if you've ever sat and talked with somebody that's way older than you and got to hear about all the cool things that they experienced and things that they saw happen in the world, you get that in this book. You know, even things as simple as when batteries were invented, because Eddie, he is 83 years old when he dies. It's actually on his birthday when he dies. But in 83 years, a lot has changed in the world, and it touches on the different things that have changed in his 83 years. And I enjoyed the story. I enjoyed it a lot. I wasn't expecting to enjoy it as much as I did. So yes, I gave this a 3.5. So the next book that I read was Truly Devious by Maureen Johnson, and I really, really like this book. Okay, so if you like Agatha Christie, if you like Sherlock Holmes, if you like, any kind of murder mystery stories, you're going to enjoy this. And it's set in the past and the present, and it's about this school where these murders have happened, and you have exceptional students there, and our main character, Stevie Bell, she has made it her mission to solve these murders. And it was such a fun read. And when I went into it, I had no idea that it was part of a series. I thought it was a standalone book. So when I was reading it, I just flew through this book. And the end came before I knew it. And the last page, it says, "To be continued, ... And I was like, no, I need to know. And so I'm anxiously awaiting the next book. Oh my goodness. So I gave this a 5 as well. So the next book I read is The Hazelwood by Melissa Albert, and ooh, isn't that a pretty cover? I love it. So this is about Alice Proserpine and her mother Ella, and well, Alice's grandmother as well. So Alice's grandmother is a writer, and she wrote this collection of fairy tales. And well, Alice and her mother have pretty much been running from place to place as far as Alice can remember. And they would have to leave because they were running away from exceptionally bad luck. Wherever they went, bad luck would follow them. And then they receive a letter that Alice's grandmother has died. And Ella believed that now they were free from the curse of bad luck and everything could go to normal. Well, that is until some of these fairy tale characters from Alice's grandmother's book have somehow appeared in the real world and kidnapped Ella. So Alice is desperate to try to find her mother, and the only clue she has is a message from her mother saying to stay away from the Hazelwood, which is her grandmother's estate. And Alice has no idea where the Hazelwood is, but she knows that's obviously where her mother's been taken, so she has to go there. And though she normally would avoid fans of her grandmother, she has to enlist the help of Ellery Finch, a boy from school with a lot of money, who is also a fan, to help her save her mother. And well, things don't go exactly as planned. And this book was not at all what I expected. And I enjoyed it a lot, and I actually gave this a 5-star as well. So the next book that I read in May was Out of the Blue by Sophie Cameron, and this is another ARC I was sent, and from what I can tell it came out in May. This is Sophie Cameron's debut novel, and she is a Scottish writer. I really, really enjoyed this book. So it's about these beings, essentially they're angels, falling from the sky at these alarming rates, and then they crash to the earth and they're like dead on impact. And people are going nuts over these beings. They're all trying to capture one if they can. And they want to try to find a way to catch one that's not dead, but they all just come hitting the ground so hard they die on impact, or really, really shortly after. But the people, they want to ask them questions, and some want to experiment on them, some want to sell them to the highest bidder, they want to take their wings or take their golden blood. And our main character, Jaya, thinks this is obviously wrong and doesn't think that they should be exploited and that they should be treated as people. And then next thing you know, a being crashes to the ground in front of her and is not dead. So Jaya does the only thing she can think to do and hide this being and try to take care of it until it can recover and go home, wherever home is. And she ends up recruiting a couple of friends to help her out. Hiding this from the world is a bit tricky. There's also a female-female relationship in this, and the main love interest has cystic fibrosis. And again, I really enjoyed this, and I gave it 4 stars. So the next book that I read in May is Red Queen by Victoria Aveyard, and Marty and I listened to the audiobook of this, and I gave this 4 stars. So this is about a society where the color of your blood determines your place. If you have silver blood, then you're born with some kind of special ability like telekinesis, or being able to control metal, or even being able to control somebody's mind. And if you're born with red blood, then well, you're just a normal human being, and therefore you're less than a silver. Silvers rule this world, and reds are pretty much the slave labor. And then there's Mare Barrow. She is something different. She is special. She is a red with silver abilities. Before she knows it, she's thrust into the silver world, disguised as a lost silver noble, betrothed to a silver prince, and secretly a spy for the Scarlet Guard. The Scarlet Guard is a red rebel organization determined to bring down the cruel silver rulers. And we gave this 4 stars. And next is Cruel Crown by Victoria Aveyard, and this is sort of a prequel novella to Red Queen. And this has 2 stories in it. The first story is Queen's Song, and this was sort of a backstory to Cal's mother and what happened to her. And it was interesting, and it wasn't that I didn't not like it, but I didn't love it either, so I would give that story a 3. And then the second story was Steel Scars, which was Farley's backstory and how she is tasked with planting the seeds of rebellion in Norta. She goes to recruit black market traders, smugglers, and extremists for her first attempt at an attack on the capital, and what she finds is Mayor Barrow. I really enjoyed this story and gave it a 4. So overall for the book, I would say 3.5. And the last book that I read in May is Eliza and Her Monsters by Francesca Apia. And oh my gosh, I love this book so much. I was not expecting as much out of it as I got. It gave me so many feels. Loved it. I was totally invested in these characters. They felt so real. In the real life, Eliza's this quiet, shy girl that nobody really pays any attention to, and she likes it that way. But on the internet, she is Lady Constellation, the creator of the super popular webcomic Monster C. Then one day, her homeroom teacher assigns Eliza to show the new kid, Wallace, around school. Wallace looks like this big football player kind of guy, but in reality, he is actually the top fan fiction writer for Monstrous C. And he thinks Eliza is just another fan of the comic. And, well, she doesn't really tell him any differently. As per most books, things don't go exactly well when her secret comes out. Mental health issues are addressed in here, such as anxiety, depression, and suicidal thoughts. And like I said, this book, I loved it so much, and I give this book 5 stars. Okay, so that is everything that I read in May. That was a lot. Okay, so May was a huge month. I read a ton. But then June came and, well, we were cruising and this and that, and I didn't really read a lot in June. So let's go on to my June stats now. So in June, I read a total of 4 books. 2 were audio, 2 were physical. I had 0 1 stars, 0 2 stars, 0 3 stars, 2 4 stars, and 2 5 stars. I read a total of 1,863 pages. So yeah, not nearly as much as I did in May, but it still wasn't a bad month. So the first thing that I read in June was Glass Sword by Victoria Aveyard. This is another book that we listened to the audiobook of, and we also really enjoyed this one. I actually liked this book more than I liked the first one. Mare just grows so much in this book and really finds her place as a leader. And though she has many around her, she finds that leading is a very lonely position. And Cal and Mare both really struggle with missing the boy that they thought Maven was and hating the monster that he seems to have become. Maven is hunting the New Bloods and leaving little notes behind for Mare to find. And Mare is trying to find and save as many of the New Bloods as she can before Maven can find them. And I gave this book a 5 star. So as soon as we finished that book, we went straight into King's Cage, which is the 3rd book in the Red Queen series by Victoria Aveyard. And we listened to the audiobook of this as well. And I felt this book had more of that middle book syndrome like you would get in a trilogy, where this book was really more, I felt like it was a connector book. But it was still a really good book. I still enjoyed it. But yeah, it just kind of had that feel of it was connecting Glass Sword to Warstorm. So it picks up right where Glass Sword leaves off, where Mare has been captured by Maven. And the first half of this book is essentially her being held and treated as a pet for Maven. One of the things that I really did like about this book that was different from the first two in the series is that in this book we start getting different perspectives. So whereas before it was all from Mare Barrow's perspective, now we're getting the perspective of Cameron, who is another new blood, who has the ability to silence other abilities, and Evangeline, who is a silver and was betrothed to Cal, but is now betrothed to Maven. So yeah, it's really, really interesting to hear their perspectives. And we gave this 4 stars. So the next book that I read in June is City of Lost Souls by Cassandra Clare, and this is the 5th book in the Mortal Instrument series. Just like all of the others, this was a reread for me, and the last time I read any of these books was years ago. So a lot of the details for a lot of the books I don't remember very well. But even though this is probably the most recent of the books that I read, I remember the other books better than I remembered this book. Yeah, I barely remembered anything from this book, which is kind of great because I get to experience it like brand new all over again. So this picks up right where City of Fallen Angels leaves off, where Sebastian has been brought back to life and Jace is now linked with him. So if one of them gets hurt, the other gets hurt. If one of them dies, the other dies. Sebastian in this case is the alpha, and so whatever he thinks or wants or feels, Jace also thinks or wants or feels. So essentially, Sebastian has complete control over Jace. And Clary and the others are on a mission to save Jace. The Clave is on a mission to kill Sebastian. So Clary and the others have to find a way to separate Jace and Sebastian before the Clave ends up killing them both. There are also a lot of developments in the other relationships in this book as well, and some are very good and some are not so good. And I can just tell you that there was a part of the epilogue that left me all teary-eyed, and I won't tell you if it was from something really sweet or something really sad. You'll just have to read to find that out. I gave this 5 stars. And last but not least, I read Daughter of the Burning City by Amanda Foodie, and also really enjoyed this. This was a book from one of my Once Upon a Book Club boxes, so I got to open gifts that kind of went along with the story, and that's always just a fun experience. But I went into this book thinking that it was going to be like a 2 or a 3-star read. I really was not expecting to get into it because I don't really do well with books that are so far out there and totally strange. And this was definitely like that. But once I kind of got my mind wrapped around what was going on in the story, I really enjoyed it. And I found myself constantly trying to figure out who did it. And one minute I would think I had something figured out. And then the next minute I would realize I didn't, and I'd start thinking something completely different. And so I really enjoy a book like that that just kind of leaves me guessing and leaves me on my toes the whole time. So the longer I read it, the more I liked it. And there were so many twists and turns that I didn't see coming. And yeah, I love this book. So Gomorrah is the burning city. It is a mystical, magical city that is shrouded in smoke and travels from place to place as a sort of traveling circus, I guess you could say. And Serena, our main character, has the ability to create illusions. Now, some of these illusions are just temporary for her show, but others have a more permanent fixture in her life and, well, are the family that she never really had. Essentially, she created like a grandfather an uncle, an older sister, and so on and so on. She's created this family, and they're more permanent illusions that she has with her all the time. And all of these illusions also have some kind of special ability, and together they make up the cast of the festival's freak show. That is, until someone murders one of them. And being that they're just illusions, that shouldn't be possible because they're not real. So if they're not real, how can somebody murder one of them? Now, Serena is desperate to protect the rest of her family and is on a mission to find out who is responsible and stop them from being able to hurt anybody else. And again, this book was filled with twists and turns that I didn't see coming, and I really enjoyed it, and I gave this 4.5 stars. Okay, so that is everything that I read in May and June. Now on to my July TBR. So for July, I don't really have any rhyme or reason as to why I picked really most of the books that I have on my TBR. They're just books that I want to read, and I have a lot of books that I want to read, so I picked 10 of them. So the first book actually is the only book that really has any kind of rhyme or reason. That's Clockwork Princess, because this is the next book that we're reading in the Shadowhunters read-along with Emma over at Emma Books. And so this book needs to be read this month. Next I have Apple and Rain by Sarah Crossan. And, well, I'm actually currently reading this one, so that is why it's on my TBR. Next is Buffy the Vampire Slayer, 20 Years of Slaying, The Watcher's Guide. Again, because I'm currently reading this, and yeah, I'm right there. So I want to finish this month. Next is The Death of Miss Westaway by Ruth Ware. This was another arc that I was sent, but the book's already come out now, and I haven't gotten around to reading it, so I really want to read this. Next is Three Dark Crowns and One Dark Throne by Kendar Blake, and I'm just really interested in reading these, and they've been sitting on my shelf, and I want to get to them. Next we have Winter and Stars Above by Marissa Meyer, because a couple of months ago I started the Lunar Chronicles, and I have all of them read except for these two, so I want to finish the series. And last but certainly not least, and this is one of my most anticipated reads of 2018, and that is Legendary by Stephanie Garber. And oh, isn't that pretty? And Caraval was one of my top 5 of 2017, and I've been so looking forward to this, and yes, I plan on reading this month. And that is my whole TBR for July, so hopefully I can get all of that read and then some. We'll see. So have you read any of these books? Did you like them? Did you not like them? Comment down below and let me know. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give me a big thumbs up. If you'd like to see more videos like this, click that subscribe button down below. And until next time,